Well, good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled special meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth held on Monday, March 22nd, 2021. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. It was a beautiful day today. I hope this continues for the indefinite future. Certainly not a weather forecaster though, so no promises. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you. Welcome to all of those who are joining us via the YouTube channel. Welcome to councillors and staff who will participate in tonight's meeting. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. The clerk advises that all councillors are in attendance and accounted for. And that means we can move on to item 2.1 of our agenda, which pertains to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those who are unfamiliar with council practices, provincial legislation does require councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with pecuniary interest to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. We did not receive any declarations ahead of this meeting, but councillors, if any of you are feeling the need to make that declaration, this is your opportunity through the usual method. We're not seeing any indication of that, so let's just sort of talk briefly about our processes. It's a special meeting tonight. We'll still be reaching out. I'll be reaching out to councillors where we have motions to get movers and seconders for the various resolutions that are before us. And as usual, I'll try to do this alphabetically. Again, if a councillor doesn't wish to respond to that request, they can let me know and I'll move to the next name on the list. Again, councillors wishing to identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function for the purposes of speaking to our business. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining a speaking order from that source. And because this is a special meeting, we're sort of inherently working with relaxed or suspended rules so that we may have a more fulsome discussion. So I'll still kind of keep my eye on questions and comments and not allow you to barrage us with too many in one turn, but we'll try to be a little more generous about that in general terms over the course of the night because we are expecting some opportunity for discussion. Again, councillors, if I don't hear you, I'll let you know. Let me be the archer. We ask you to keep a mute state during the meeting as usual until you're called upon to speak. And if your votes don't show up in eScribe, and I think we'll have a few there tonight, if I'm not mistaken, Clerk Perfeltz, we have a few votes tonight that will. I'll call on you when things are stalled to register a manual vote if something goes amiss, and you know the usual process. So let's begin. As I said, we have a slightly more relaxed rule set for tonight because it is a special council meeting. I do have item 2 to get us rolling for the meeting tonight. That reads as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call on Councillor Behrens to be our mover for that?
Yes, I will make that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you be our seconder?
Yes, I can second that.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or debate on this item? All right, let's have that vote. And are we missing one?
Mine did not show up. I'll reboot my computer, but I am in. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. So with that, that's carried. Thank you. And let's move on then to item 3. Again, a little different than our usual meetings in terms of the meeting number in the agenda, but off we go with this. So for item 3.1, we have received draft documents originating from the work that's being done on the development of a community safety and well-being plan. I'll get my words. The province of Ontario has mandated that we create such a plan, and we are collaborating with other communities in Perth County towards that end. We're invited to learn about the progress of that work tonight, ask some questions, and make if we have any recommendations on this item tonight. So I'm going to call on CAO Chris Snell to update us on the process and identify what kind of work he needs us to do as council tonight to support this process. I believe, just for the sake of our knowledge, that Councillor Behrens has been our delegate to this work and to the sort of steering committee. So no doubt she'll have information for us as well. Let's start with CAO Snell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Good evening, Council. As the Mayor mentioned, the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan was a requirement put forth by the province for every municipality that has a police force. So that included the 6 municipalities in Perth County that we are partnering with on this project. The plan was originally had a deadline of January 1st, 2021, but because of COVID-19, it was pushed back till July 1st due date. Tonight, we have an executive summary illustrating the preliminary findings of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan, as well as a frequently asked question document that council can use when they're asked questions about the plan, as well as an update from the co-chairs on the committee. So tonight really is just an opportunity for us to sort of see the preliminary findings of the plan. And certainly I may ask Councillor Behrens to make comments right after I'm done. But as the Mayor said, Councillor Behrens has been our appointment to the working task force that has got us to this stage so far. I'm not going to go through the full executive summary, but I really just thought it would be useful to review the priority areas as found by the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. Those include system planning and integration, which basically looks at access to services and programs, affordable, attainable, and suitable housing, affordable and accessible health, social, and recreation services, and then as the 4th priority being social inclusion. So I think certainly the valid work behind this, many of these same issues are some of the conversations we've been having as a community over the last number of years. So I don't think there's any surprises coming forward in the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan. Really, the change in strategy in the plans was just before the whole plan is released. It was felt that it would really be useful to accompany with the implementation plan. And so right now that will be the work of the group going forward, and they will be presented to the council as a package before the July 1st deadline. So I don't know if Councillor Behrens has any comments she'd like to make at this time.
Thank you, CAO Snell. Through you, Mayor Kasenberg, just a couple of comments. First of all, it truly was a pleasure and a good working relationship with all of the agencies, and there were so many agencies and representatives working on this plan, and it all started off with the survey, which did receive excellent returns. I believe in the survey results, at least 10% came from North Perth, and it was people who had lived here for at least 10 years. in the plan itself, and it was thought that, like CAO Snell has mentioned, that it would be better to present both and implement the plan and an implementation plan. That is not to say that individual municipalities, even though it was done cooperatively, North Perth can still choose the priorities that they feel they want to address in this. But as you can see, as CAO Snell mentioned, when you read through just even the brief, but the plan is more detailed, you will find that many of these initiatives or similar initiatives we've already talked about. And for an example, I would say like Ms. Gangle has talked about the Lonely No More. Well, that fits in perfectly with some of these strategies that we're working on and the key priorities that we're looking at. So there is money in the North Perth budget to start implementation, but it is a multi-year project. So I believe that when you see the plan, you'll understand it. But if there's any questions right now that I can try to answer, I will do that. But it really was an excellent collaborative effort on behalf of so many agencies in Perth County and geographic Perth County as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Behrens and CAO Snell. I guess my first question I'm kind of curious about is, will a separate plan be released for each of the communities that has been identified? And certainly, it seems there are 6 communities, I think, that were listed. And will we see one that's sort of individualized for North Perth for the purposes of both our community embracing and having its own priorities met, and 2, to comply, I assume, with the provincial legislation? CO Snell?
So my understanding is that the provincial legislation does allow us to collaborate with surrounding municipalities. So it's quite often this has been done already regionally. And there will not be separate plans for each of the communities, but certainly, as Councillor Barron says, we can still set the priorities using the plan going forward to set our own priorities and almost just sort of reset our priorities on a local level using the plan as sort of a guiding document.
Thanks, that's great. Pat, do we have any councillors wishing to ask questions or make comments? Okay. Councillors, we're not seeing any hands raised in the chat function. Any of you like to weigh in or ask questions? Give some feedback? And we're still not seeing anything. One last call. Practicing my auctioneer skills so I can give Dave a run for his money. Councillor Rothwell, please.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Chris and Councillor Behrens for your report. A number of the issues that are in this report have been discussed by our COVID Recovery Action Group on the social services side, and it's clearly, it has been discussed as well around our committee in terms of, say, for example, the involvement of our municipal staff, but also the Salvation Army United Way in particular. And so again, I think it's important that, as was mentioned, we can reset our priorities here going forward. That we are in fact all working together, and I really applaud this effort. And maybe in some respects, having COVID delay this program has given us more opportunity to really roll up our sleeves and discuss this even virtually. And perhaps Chris or Councillor Behrens want to comment on that in terms of the additional time that was required to put this together. Thank you.
I can add the comments, and this was even pre-COVID, and certainly it was reiterated by Councillor Behrens. I went to the very first kickoff meeting where all the agencies were invited to attend, and the attendance in that room was almost 100% compliance, which was nice to see. So I would agree. And even at that meeting, I think the interesting part, a lot of the comments where this is the first time all the agencies had come together in one room to talk about a plan for the region. So everything from healthcare, education, municipal sector, law enforcement, social services were all in the room initially. And so part of the early challenges, I know the committee was sort of making sure everybody had a voice, because at that meeting there was almost 40 people in attendance, and it almost could get a little unyieldy. But certainly I think the committee has done a great job of trying to make sure everybody has a voice, but yet maintain that sense of collaboration amongst all the service agencies serving our area.
Councillor Andreessen next, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you, Julie. I can see that you would been quite busy with this committee in terms of providing input and reviewing what's been put together. And I thank you for your contribution to this. I'm just curious about the community safety and well-being plan priorities. And I'm looking at goal number well, priority area number 4 on social inclusion. And it really talks about the importance of our vulnerable populations, and looking at the application of equity, diversity, and inclusion practices. And perhaps you can speak to that a little bit more, Julie, if you don't mind, because I'm very curious about this part. And is this, it says a priority area number 4, although I don't really, if I look at us as North Perth, I'm not seeing that there. I just wondered if you could connect those dots for me. Thank you.
If I may, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Okay, I'm not sure exactly why you don't see it for North Perth, Leanne. I apologize. I didn't quite understand that statement. So priority number 4, there is a lot of work that is being done and promotion being done in all of the sectors about the social inclusion and diversity. And this is where I use the example, you know, the home alone and trying to include, you know, different age groups, different sectors, and what the principles in that are. And it's really, I mean, I think there's a project going on right now in Perth County. And I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, and I apologize. They were just doing a survey about social justice and treating everyone equally. I mean, certainly even our community of character fits in to this category. So I think that's when you see the plan, you will probably understand the brief a little bit more. It goes into a little bit higher detail, but it was thought that just bringing awareness to certain issues that people deal with each and every day, and the inclusion of people and being aware that people are dealing with things that you may not see, like it's not a physical disability. So, I mean, even I believe it was last year, the Egg Society had put on like a mental health seminar. It's all of those things combined. So as you can imagine, there are so many initiatives that are currently going on, but so many that we would have the opportunity to do to improve just the awareness of our community in the acceptance of everyone within our community and visitors to our community. So I think that's where priority number 4 is going, Leanne. I will let the rest of council know, yes, we did get slowed down a bit with COVID, but I think because of COVID, like priority area number 4 with the social inclusion and the mental health and all of that really came out. And people were willing to chat and talk about it. So I think in some ways, not to say that it was a good thing, but just a slight delay in the timing did help with the amount of research that was done from some of the sectors. The second thing I would say is you will actually see the plan probably within the next month. And Perth County is very happy that we are one of the first to move forward with the actual plan and the implementation plan. So in answer to Todd's comment about, yes, we will be able to, as North Perth, decide what initiatives and how we choose to spend the budget money. And like Alan, Councillor Rothwell has suggested, the municipality doesn't necessarily have to do it all, but sometimes just being in that supportive role when other agencies are working on it helps immensely to do a broad spectrum program. So Leanne, I apologize if I didn't maybe answer your question directly, but I will try to answer the best I can.
If I may, Mayor Todd, I think perhaps if it's in the full plan, it might be, now that you explained it's in the full plan, I might be able to connect those dots better. Thank you.
Julie, we see your name down as a wishing to speak. Did you want to add something more or address another issue?
No, thank you. I just included everything. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, great, thanks. I'll admit that I'm pretty excited about the fact that this plan speaks in a few places about integration and reducing, I'll use my own terminology, reducing fragmentation. One of the things that I have taken note of fairly early in my mayorship is that, when you look at some of the more significant social issues that our community and society is facing, there are times when it seems very hard to figure out which string to pull, which part of the fabric you want to work on, because there are many agencies, some of which are local, some of which are grassroots even, and some of which are elsewhere, usually Stratford. And so this notion in this plan as one of the priorities to talk about integration, I think is really a valuable idea, because it's certainly been a concern as an outside observer, but an interested observer in taking note of that fragmentation that can exist. It doesn't take long to work up a couple of sort of either crisis or concerning scenarios that people would present with, either in mental health or financial stress, and it doesn't take long for you to sort of realize that you may not know who to call, and you might get different answers depending on who you do call. And so I think this plan is speaking to that opportunity for us to create a cohesive landscape, and perhaps more importantly, to communicate it effectively. And that excites me. So I offer good wishes to the committee, the planning group that's been behind this, because they certainly tap into something that feels very important, intuitively seems to need some work. Anyone else? We're not seeing anyone else. So we have a resolution, council, for our consideration. The resolution reads as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan interim report for information. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Callum to be our mover for that?
Yes, I'll make that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. And Councillor Johnston, will you serve as our seconder for that?
Yes, I would second that.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate on this? We're not seeing any, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you very much. Next up then is item 3.2. And We have received a report from the CAO pertaining to staff review actions and realized potential outcomes associated with our departmental business plans. So council and the community will recall that we've been poring over business plans from each of our departments over the last several meetings. And we came to a conclusion of that, I think, 2 meetings ago. And now we're starting to see back, and tonight's, it's on the agenda for that purpose tonight, the opportunity to see staff response to our queries and suggestions for action. We've received updated business plans. Again, staff reviewing the mandates that council has given with their advice, and those plans reflect the changes. So tonight we're going to be asked to consider a motion that approves these business plans and unleashes the work of the organization according to them. I'm going to call on CAO Snell for an overview of this one as well. Chris.
Thank you again, Mayor. Just before we move on to the business plans, I would like to just pass my appreciation on to the community for the community safety wellbeing plan. It has been a tremendous amount of work, and certainly, I believe there was 3 municipalities that had council representation, and I remember at the time we sorted drew straws to see which municipalities would have staff on and have council on, and certainly would like to thank Councillor Behrens for her time and commitment towards this, because I know it was a ton of work. So as the mayor said, we have completed the review of the business department business plan, excuse me, and we've really accumulated all the comments from council through the process. We have dwindled down that overage hour from the first sort of go around, almost by 14,000, and that includes sort of the 6,000 right at the top that was sort of on call for the fire department. So some of these issues are still outstanding issues of concern, but we really have brought down the hours for 2021 by that amount through the process. But very little of those were actually canceled. Those were mostly just deferred and pushed on farther down the road. So at some point, we still will have to come back and clarify those. As a result of all that, we still do have an overage of about 11,798 above current departmental capacity. As I continue the report, some of those will be picked up by the new positions being added through the 2021 budget process, being the manager of facilities, the HR administrative services assistant, as well as IT and finance assistant. And I have gone on to also talk about some of the positions that were also talked about through the council process. One was really a development supervisor coordinator. One of the things that we struggle with at the staff level is development crosses all departments, and it sometimes is very inefficient just the way we do handle that now. Danette has done a tremendous job of trying to organize us and structure us in such a way, but obviously she has a lot of other duties also as a deputy clerk, and as we continue to grow, it just becomes more of a strain on all the departments involved in the development process. And then manager strategic initiatives, which we did see in the proposed organizational vision, and that would be looking at sort of really long-term, big picture projects. Just to give some examples, the long-term care plan and the land around Perth Meadows, affordable attainable housing, the plan for the lands around the Steve Kerr and Binning Street. Some of those really big picture projects that do take up a lot of time in their planning and development. That's just to name a few. And then again, as I mentioned, the outstanding issue around the fire department on-call process and training, as you've heard from Chief Smith in recent council meetings. So I hope we've captured all of sort of council's thoughts, but certainly tonight is an opportunity for us to go through one more time. And as the mayor says, even though we've been working sort of from the plans, once they're officially approved, we can continue on working from them and proceeding with the implementation of the North Perth Strategic Plan through this process. And I'm certainly here to answer any questions council may have.
Thanks, CEO Snell. Councillors, any questions or comments at this point? Anything that stands out that you'd like to address? Clerk Parkfelds, are we seeing anything? It to me looks like we're not seeing any individuals expressing interest to offer commentary. With regards to these business plans, I think there's a fairly modest and incremental approach to addressing some of the greater needs within the organization so that we can execute on the business plan priorities. And I'm quite appreciative of the work. No doubt some of the arm wrestling that has gone on behind the scenes to both address council's suggestions and requests and to try to create an appropriate path for staffing augmentation where necessary and deferral and or cancellation of things that just can't be on our priority list because of a very busy staff that we have. I think that the staff has come up with a reasonable approach here. I think CAO Snell would acknowledge that there are still things that won't get done, even with our staffing plan that seems attached to these business plans. There's still going to be several thousand hours, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that aren't really accounted for yet. But at least we're making some headway towards the outcomes that we seek for our community. So I'm pleased with the plan. I'm happy to endorse the plan and welcome my colleagues' comments if they have anything that they feel is outstanding on this before we just consider a resolution about this. CAO Snell, did you have some more comments to make?
Just to add to sort of that, Mayor Todd, is one of the things that when we started introducing the strategic plan process, one of the conversations I had with this successful consultant was just, I thought the last thing our last strategic plan was missing was a good implementation model, as well as really an integration across departments. So I think through this process, the management team level anyway, and I think now it's our job to verbalize that down to all staff. So the development of business plans actually have now sort of, I think for the first time on paper, has seen how all the important work that our departments do in implementing the strategic plan. We've always sort of had working plans, but they're, I would say, sometimes very siloed by department to department. And this is probably the first time we've done such an sort of integrated model to bring all the departments together in sort of a single format with a single goal of strategic plan implementation. I think that from that standpoint, it's been very useful and successful exercise at the staff level as well.
Thanks for that, CAO Snell. And certainly, as I read the response essentially from staff to the suggestions and recommendations of council, I took note of the goodly number of lines that were shared projects. And like you said, that's an exciting realization that as an organization, we can begin to show how we're using time on cross-functional projects and activities that make a difference in the lives of our community. So kudos to the staff. We appreciate the work that's been done for sure. And I guess we hope, at least I hope, that this collaborative opportunity that was presented by this plan leads to greater and better things. So my appreciation, I think, I don't think I stand alone on council in expressing that to you and to all of the team. It's good work. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to offer comment? Okay. I think it's important before we consider the resolution just to sort of acknowledge that, you know, there are times in the life of organizations, and municipalities are not exempt, where there will be people who will be concerned about additional investment in staff resources in particular, to make things happen. And you know, we need to acknowledge that there's a prudence involved in making those choices about the kind of community that we want versus the taxpayers' dollars. And I think we've struck a careful and prudent balance here. I'm sure that some will criticize us for allowing the staff to expand a little bit more again, but our community expands and grows, and we have to be able to meet even just the statutory needs that are placed on us by the province duties under the Municipal Act. So I think that this is you know, an important point to bear in mind, is that you can't always shrink your way to greatness. And I'm sure that every councillor on this table aspires for our community to be the best place to live and to love and to make a contribution in Ontario, and we're on our way to that. So, and have been that for years. Anyone further before I wax into poetry? Speaking of poetry, by the way, Councillor Barons very much appreciated the poem that was published in the banner this week with regards to the commemoration, the memorialization of our 2 lost firefighters. I didn't know that you wrote poetry, and it was a pleasure to read. Okay, sorry. Yes, sorry for the diversion. Let's get back on. My appreciation and congratulations there. So I have a resolution for our consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report titled 2021 Business Plan Review Update as information, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receive and approve the revised North Perth 2021 Department Business Plans as attached. And I call on Councillor Richardson to be our mover.
Yes, I will move that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rothwell, will you serve as seconder?
I'll second the motion.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Are we seeing anything, Pat? Okay, so let's have that vote.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Dave here. It did not come up for me. I'm in favor.
Thank you. With that, that is unanimously carried. I again express appreciation to the staff for their work, and I think council's vote shows that they appreciate that work too. Okay, that brings us to item 4. Just an opportunity, I think, in this meeting, because we've considered 2 weighty matters. Is there any direction that council would like to offer to staff on either of those matters at this point? I don't think we're seeing any. I think we've had the conversations we need to have. So that brings us to agenda item number 5. We have 1 matter to be considered in a closed session of council tonight. I'm going to read the resolution that both explains and enables our action to enter into closed session. The resolution is as follows. This committee proceed in camera at 7:40 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, regarding administrative staff. I call on, let's see who was up on my list next. Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our mover for that one?
I will so move. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Sure, I'll second that motion.
Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. We're waiting for one. Is it Councillor Johnston? No, he's there this time. Who are we missing?
Mayor Todd, it's me. It's Alan. I'm in favor. My vote didn't come up. I'll restart eScribe.
Thanks, Councillor Rothwell. With that, that's carried unanimously. Those who are on the call, who have been invited to remain, should remain. Anyone else who's with us on the call who's not been invited to the closed session should exit at this point. And we're going to make a few adjustments to the AV. So just council, give me a few minutes. With Simon's support, we'll get us there. So we're just testing to see if we've returned to YouTube, to the live stream. Okay, so Councillor Richardson advises that he's seeing, and I hope hearing us. Matt, if you're not hearing us, let us know. So that brings us to the next matter on our agenda. We have nothing to report from our closed session tonight. So that brings us to our confirmatory bylaw. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what's called the confirmatory bylaw. And I have a draft of the same, which reads as follows: the bylaw number 32 2021 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time and be finally passed. And that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Can I call on Councillor Duncan to be our mover for this one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks. Any discussion or debate? Are we using eScribe or are we not using eScribe? No eScribe. So are there any opposed? So that's carried. Thank you. And Council, that brings us to the end of our deliberations for the evening. Before I read a motion to adjourn, is there any further business? So the clerk is advising me to advise council that next week's council meeting will be very similar to tonight, with the relaxed rules set and a much abbreviated agenda. And we'll be concentrating on emergency management and bylaw enforcement as our two topics, key topics next week. Okay, so not seeing any indication of any further business, I have a resolution for our consideration, which reads as follows: the council meeting adjourned at 8:29 p.m. I call on Councillor Johnston to be our mover for this one.
Yes, I would definitely move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you be our seconder?
I would gladly second that. Thank you.
Everyone is very excited about adjournment motions, it seems. Thank you. Council, are there any opposed? Then that is carried. We'll call this meeting adjourned. We are having a special council meeting next Monday night, as described a little bit earlier, with another couple of key topics for our consideration. Thanks for participating tonight, council and staff, and have a good night.